So our first speaker for this afternoon is Wes Cattoor. He's with the Office of Water Resources with the Illinois Department of Natural Resources. And we've asked him to come and say a word or two about the Illinois DNR's new dam public safety policy.
Well, thank you very much. I get the joy of coming here and speaking right after lunch about state policy. I mean, that's definitely going to go over real well. So I really appreciate being invited up here to Wisconsin, first time here. So it's great to begin to have these calibration and collaboration with all the partners here. Many of you I've worked with through the years. Some of them I'm meeting for the first time. So judging by Ryan's presentation earlier today, there's some interesting questions. So I'm sure you guys are very thrilled to hear about policy. So I'm going to try and move through that quickly. And then we will have hopefully some time to talk about the 519 and the state's perspective of that if there is interest. So just a quick overview of what we're talking about. We're going to get into a little bit of history, our new policy, what is now, what the policy actually is, and then the status of dam removal, particularly on the Fox in Illinois moving forward. So just a little bit of history about dam removals. You know, we've been doing it for a number of decades. It really picked up speed in 2012. And you'll have to forgive me, this middle line here should say 2012 when Hoffman Dam was removed, and also when the governor's dam removal initiative took effect. We also had Blackberry Dam removal, and to date now, back in 2021, we've got all the dams out of the main stem of the Des Plaines River. So a big accomplishment there, yes. So we're already seeing the water quality benefits of that, and partial joke, partial not joke. It's actually, we found that sometimes the poor water quality in the Des Plaines River help keep the Asian carp back a little bit. So now we have to work a little more actively, make sure we keep those Asian carp back. Now the water quality is improving on the Des Plaines River, but it's something we want to mimic on the Fox River, is to see that water quality improve. So a little bit of overview on why we're providing this guidance now. So DNR right now is often being called to court over these dams. It's a tragic thing to see a lost life, or even putting the emergency responders at risk to rescue somebody whenever there is an incident at one of these dams, whether it's a fisherman getting too close, a boat losing power getting over these dams. And what we've struggled with, and what we really called the question on, is what happens when we do get called to court on these issues. And the first thing is they're going to say, well, did you know these dams were dangerous? Yes, we've been studying them for decades. We know how dangerous they are. The other question is, do you guys have the knowledge to do something about it? So we actually have technical staff that designs dam removal. So we would have a hard time saying, well, yeah, we have the technical expertise, the knowledge to take that. We know they're dangerous, and we have that expertise in our office to do something about it. Well, do you guys have the money to do it? Actually, right now, we do have the money right now to take out a lot of dams. So we're really struggling to find out, well, why aren't we doing more? And part of that is just limited resources and staffing to do that, but it's also making sure that we're finding the right partners that are ready to move forward with dam removal. So the other thing we ran into is consistency. We'd have a community here come talk to us. We'd have a community over here come talk to us. And we're right now trying to be more proactive as far as identifying our most at-risk public safety dams in Illinois. So we're working through that matrix right now and identifying how do we prioritize which dams come out, which ones we focus on. We have finite funding, we can't take them all out throughout the entire state. So how do we find a consistent practice in what we're going to fund, which ones we're going to fund, and how to proceed in a manner that is most efficient and beneficial for the public and the water. And also we've looked at updating this guidance because of the demand. Obviously with 519, we're going to talk about that a little bit. We're seeing an increased demand, which is great, that more and more communities want to work and partner with IDNR to get these dams removed for the benefit of IDNR. So why the Fox? And we heard the Corps talk earlier about the 519. We are that non-federal cost share for the vast majority of these dams, or we hope to be. And the Corps really came to us and say, well, DNR, you guys own a lot of these dams. What is your take on that? And it really made us go back to the drawing board and say, we need to have a set policy in place for dam removals in Illinois. And again, the increasing litigation with public safety also on the Fox has become a big issue. DNR owning 7 of the 11 dams that's talked about in the 519 study. We definitely need to do something. We have those fundings. And really, we're finding these dams are not serving their initial purpose on the Fox River. Some were for ice generation, various other purposes, but they're not really addressing their intended purposes as they were initially built. So just a little bit of overview. The state owns a number of these dams, and you can see the list there. I'm not going to go over them. Anybody from St. Charles here? Okay. So there's a question mark after that one. I'll let you guys ask a question about that later, but there is some questions on ownership in St. Charles. That's kind of a new thing. So I don't know if anybody really outside of IDNR and St. Charles knew about that. So that's something we're working through right now, trying to confirm ownership. And then we have dams that we're currently underway with study by IDNR. So we are working with Carpentersville. I got the final plans sitting in my inbox right now as I speak, waiting for me. I've been out at another conference the last 2 days. So as soon as I get back, I'm going to be reviewing those final plans, hopefully approving them so that we can go secure final permits required and move to construction this fall on Carpentersville. So that was the dam. Thank you. Yeah, it's great. We are excited to see it. Like I said, it's been a long time since we've had something come out on the main stem, but that's just the beginning of what we're hoping to go with these. We are working with North Aurora. Some people, I heard somebody ask, hey, did that stall out? No, we found a lot of contaminants in North Aurora, so we got a long discussion with IEPA we're continuing to work through. So unfortunately, that's slowed down quite a bit, but know that we're still actively pursuing that and working on it. We just hit the speed bump with finding contaminants in the sediment. We're also working directly with Montgomery. We got a dam committee that we're meeting there. We were meeting almost monthly, just kind of throwing some ideas out, seeing what they're interested in, and exploring Montgomery. There's also other dam removals we're doing throughout the whole state. So while we love to work in the Fox River watershed, we have the whole state to contend with. So we have other dams there as well. So I think you've all seen this exhibit and showing the Fox River and where these dams are at. So I just wanted to kind of give an overview of where those are at. And what's really interesting is the gradient changes as you move down from Algonquin and seeing that higher slope, which is, again, you'll see a lot of erosion occurring in those dams or getting collected in those dams. So this can be a challenge we're trying to face and overcome. So as we get into the policy question, I want to put out this disclaimer that this policy is not an absolute, it's a guidance document on how we go about things. So every dam is a little different, and how we're going to address those are going to change a little bit here and there. So just a quick overview on prioritization. Because we own the dams, those are the ones that we're most liable for, so it makes sense for us to focus on those first. So we are focusing foremost on state-owned dams, first and foremost. Next, we're looking at public water. So if you guys aren't familiar with how Illinois designates water, there's public water and there's non-public water. The Fox River is 100% public water up through to the state boundary. So anything on the Fox is actually public water, meaning the public has the right to access that water for fishing and recreation, and that changes with the water level. So as they mentioned today, if you got a flood and it comes up to your home, someone can access in a canoe, go into your yard, or what was your yard is now inundated. And as that water draws back, they're confined to staying on the water. The bed of the river is still owned by that property owner. It's just the water they have the right to access. So that's really what designates public water. So lastly, we have publicly owned dams. So not state-owned, maybe this is owned by the municipality on non-public water. That's kind of a lower priority for us because we don't have that public safety factor as much. They're not supposed to be there unless they've been given, unless if it's actually government-owned property. So that's a lower priority. And lastly, we have privately owned dams. The state can't fund something that's not owned by a government entity. So we cannot fund privately owned dams. Now I say that if a private owner wants to donate or give that land to a government entity, they can do that to remove their liability. We actually have this on the Kankakee River at Wilmington. Half the dam is owned by a private owner. They're looking at conveying that to the city so that we can work with that community to work on their dam. So just a couple of general process of what happens when we initiate dam removal. So if the IDNR goes to the community and has interest in modifying that dam, making it safe, removal, there's kind of two options. The locals can come to us and say, yes, we're interested, and then we go into what's called a project study. Now, if the locals oppose IDNR and say, no, we're not really interested at all, there's kind of two things that happen. As the owner of those dams, as the ones being legally liable for those dams, we do have the authority to go in and remove it if we wanted to. And we could be directed legislatively to remove a dam in a community if we were directed to do so. I'll say that that's never happened, and it's not our intent from our office to ever do that. Our interest is always to work with the local communities to evaluate what's best for the community. And then if they do want to keep the dam, then we just say, that's fine, that's great, take ownership. We don't want that liability. It's in the community's interest to keep it. We'll offer it to you. Again, if a local government comes to us saying we want to work on a project, then we just proceed as a normal study. So what that project really looks like, we typically sign an MOU, kind of defining who's doing what. We move through what's called a strategic study, where we can look at any options the community wants to. Full dam removal is always included, but it can include modifications, riffles, things of that nature. At the end of the study, we all hopefully come to the same conclusion about how to proceed with that project. And if that does occur, then we move on to the next phase of the project. But know that IDNR does have the ability, because we have the liability, to either move forward on our own or ask that community to take on that ownership. So this is a little hard to see. This is just a quick list of everything that the state does that would pay for during a study, including survey, sediment testing, wetlands, waters of the U.S. delineation, looking at regulatory issues, water supply concerns, safety issues, other betterments. Those are all things that we can include in our study as we're evaluating options at that dam. And for you guys who are right-brainers, there's kind of a more visual understanding. A couple of studies, we do sediment testing, as you see in that middle exhibit, all the testing for chemicals, inundation mapping on that far bottom right-hand corner, wetland delineations as well. So once we get through a study and we come to agreement, then we move into the policy, the project phase of it. So that's where we get into an actual intergovernmental agreement, who's paying for what, who's doing what, acquiring the land rights, acquiring permits needed to do work. Our design team will put together plans and specs, and then that is where we also, in that agreement, define that the locals will have to take on operation and maintenance moving forward. Now, if you remove the dam, you don't really have that, but we put it in the agreement just in case there is something that comes up. We're conveying that back to the community. So again, we have the three phases: the study, the design, and the construction. And when it comes to cost, everybody wants to know what's going to cost. When it comes to strategic study, the DNR will pay for everything. Now, we're limited at staff. It takes a while for us to procure like wetlands, to go out to bid, to get the wetlands surveyed, and doing some of that expertise that we don't have So the community can go out and do that themselves to expedite the schedule. But where it really changes is in numbers 2 and 3. So if the community decides that they don't want a dam removal, say they want to have a series of riffle structures, the state will not pay for those costs. They are on their own. So we do put that preface out there. We will pay for 60% of the dam removal costs. So if a community has $1 million to remove the dam and a $20 million project to put in some kind of whitewater course, we're essentially paying for $600,000. They're left for the other $19.4 million to come up with it. So we don't want to drain all of our budget on a non-removal project. So that's how we kind of distinguish. Safety is a big issue for us, and that's why we will pay the 60% to add, but must have that safety component. So where are we at right now? Stratton Algonquin not being considered to take legislation to remove Stratton because right now it's protected by the McHenry Dam Act. Algonquin, the Corps put money in gates there that's heavily used for recreation, and we just knew that wouldn't go over, so we took that one off the table. Carpentersville is coming out in 2024. As you can see, the long list of that we're currently working with these communities. I will say, IDNR is weekly engaging with these communities to just clarify the facts. There's been a lot of misunderstandings about what's going on with this study, what the state will pay for, and what conditions we have, how they don't have to make a decision until March 2025. Let me say that again, March 2025 is when they need to make a decision. And you can see the rest going out. I'm running out of time, I apologize. So right now we're continuing to work with those communities and working on those strategic studies with the available staff. Right now we have a team of 5 that's got to run 4 programs, statewide programs. So we got very limited resources to do this all in. And with that, I thank you very much.